80s fashions had to be seen to be believed. Bigger, brighter, louder, vulgar. Fictional fantasy or real-world inspiration? You be the judge, up next on PopCon. I'm Victor, and I was there. 1980s fashions have been described anywhere between crazy as hell to just plain tacky. But you can't deny it was fun. I mean, it was like we were trying to top each other with over-the-top excess in color, in the amount of clothes we were wearing, layers. We had the acid-wash jeans, strategically tied handkerchiefs on our body, tucking our jeans in our socks. There was the oversized sweatshirts, the ripped sweatshirt off the shoulder. There was the buttons all the way to the top and vests. There was the bangles and the watches, multiple on every arm. There was mesh shirts. There was mesh gloves. There was jelly sandals. There was bows everywhere. Bows in your hair, bows on your butt, bows in the front. It was totally rad and outrageous. This is PopCon, and speaking of outrageous, we are continuing our journey into look at real-world 80s fashions that inspired the world of Jem. Yes, that Jem. And if you missed part 1 of this fantastic series of 80s-inspired clothing for our doll friends, go ahead and check it out. But wait till this one's over for sure. Wait, we're going to be looking today at Jem's rival bands, the Misfits and the Stingers. So right from the get-go, I want to tell you these rock and rollers, and I use that term loosely, they're more theatrical costumes than just off the rack, but the inspiration is under there, and I'm going to show you. So come with me while we see how well the showrunners of this classic 80s cartoon did with these out-of-the-world fashions and their over-the-top characters of this classic 80s cartoon. All right, a quick recap for the uninitiated. In a time where cartoons never deviated from their iconic looks, Hasbro needed to sell more clothing accessories for the dolls that were out in the market. So for the first time, and unlike Barbie, they had a vehicle to do that. Surprisingly, the Jem cartoon depicted its main characters changing clothes and capturing the essence of the 80s, capitalizing on the MTV generation of excess and greed. They marketed the toy line, as they always did in the era, with a companion animated series and accompanying gimmicks that resulted in a lifelong legacy from only 3 years. Meet Phyllis Gabor. I bet you didn't know that Pizazz's real name was Phyllis. Well, she is the lead singer and lead guitar of the rival rock band, the Misfits, and an animal lover. And by that I mean animal print lover. So her signature look was very custom. And this look, as with all the characters, was what the doll was designed to be released in and be the default look or the default costume of the character as they appear in the cartoon. Now, how does this compare to 80s fashions of the time? Let's take a look at some authentic examples. 2 animation models were created. The original with some stringy fringe and what it morphed into, the one with the trim detail. Still, animal prints were all the rage. If you didn't think jungle prints and pink were a thing, here's proof. Certainly a custom creation, these 2 vintage dresses seem like combined inspiration for Pizazz's look, creating one thing, this famous iconic dress from these 2, then topping off the whole look with a very common thing, a green tie belt, and then adding a little bit more flourish with 1, not 2, but 1 lime green sock. Not a leg warmer like the original animation model depicted. As a reminder, Pizazz wore tons of other great fashions in the show with all kinds of other inspirations and very theatrical. But as we'll look at all of the characters, we're specifically looking at that original design. The character's signature look, the default look on the cartoon, and what you expected in the box. The box art was a beautiful realistic creation of the design and an exceptionally pouty mean girl. And then you open the box. Roxanne Pellegrini, or just Roxy. She was not a spoiled rich girl like Pizazz. Actually, she was the Rachel to Pizazz's Monica. She was very street smart, but she was also illiterate. Yes, this was still an 80s cartoon, folks. Content as a troublemaker, the bass player for the Misfits went for the more sexy, off-the-rack look for her signature style. And you could get a fuzzy sweater anywhere. Although colors may have changed with the animation model, she still had plenty of sweaters to choose from. Hacking off a sleeve for her own individuality and cinching it with the all-too-common green geometrical wide belt that was a dime a dozen, she finished off the whole look with leggings. Oh, okay, let's be serious. We called them stretch pants back then, and both men and women strutted their stuff, and I mean all their stuff, in any color or design they could think of. Roxy finished it off with slingback shoes and a chain link necklace, as one fashion-forward 80s rock girl would. Roxy's design on the cartoon had her looking fantastic in any of the fashions they created for her. But the best she looked was on the card art, or the packaging artwork by Sharon Nettles. It was gorgeous and really translated to who this character was. And then you open the box. I'm not sure the doll translates, but they got the costume right. Stormer was Mary Phillips. We don't know a lot about Mary except for that she wrote all the Misfits music, and she was a little softer than the other two members of the band, which is why she's always depicted with that gorgeous little orange flower. I like to think it's an orchid. Anyway, anything else we know about her is that she has a brother named Craig, who also has blue hair, and he's in love with one of the holograms, Aja, who also has blue hair. Did I mention this is like a total soap opera? Anyway, when it comes to Stormer's look, she does channel Pizazz's love of not just animal prints, but sort of that custom look for the stage. She takes a very simple mini skirt, which you could find on any rack, and she pairs it with an off-the-shoulder pink top. Now, at this point, she kind of customizes and goes for a bit of fringe. Whether that fringe is animal print or something else, can't really tell, but you can tell that it was truly a thing in the 80s. You could find these items, you could put it together. She looks sexy, she looks empowered, she looks comfortable. All over her great fishnets. This whole outfit was totally of the time, totally could be found at the time, so it looks the part. What doesn't look quite the part is the hair. So the doll and the package art show this gorgeous curly hair. Sadly, the show tended to go with the easy out, which was to draw this big Aquanet set rocker Lita Ford type hair of the 80s. So if you look on the box art, it's so intricate and realistic. And once again, you see how you can actually connect with these characters. And when you open the box, well, you see a friendly looking girl that would have left the Misfits feeling unappreciated and joined into a duo with Kimber from the Holograms, but that's another story. You gotta give some props to the creators of this doll because of the actual real authentic 80s guitar she's holding. Check this out. What do you need to do when you're second best? Yeah, the Misfits needed to add another member of the band, and what do? You add international flavor, of course. You add Sheila Burns, who herself is a British rocker and a pathological liar, and plays a mean saxophone. As one does, I guess, in an 80s rock band. Either way, she was a great addition. And speaking of hair, this is the biggest in the entire show. It worked for her, though, and with the, of course, the necessary makeup on her face that was pretty much found in mostly guy bands, this hair really fits the part. Let me show you. Yep. This is what I'm talking about. So anyway, Jetta. This is the name that Sheila went by, Jetta, and she was the fourth member of the Misfits, and she was just as cool. She does have this off-the-rack look, kind of like Roxy as well, where she's wearing stretch pants. They're black and white, pretty simple. She wears them under a polka dot mini dress with a polka dot sash. Now, the thing that is strange, but is still of the time, because you could find ponchos. This is definitely a customized or personalized fringed poncho that she wore over this. Yeah, I love it. I even love that it looks like she has tinsel in her hair. Here we have Jetta's box art. She was the only box art that was created for her because it was later in the line. And then you open the package, and I don't know about you, but she just seems way too friendly looking to be a member of the Misfits, but oh well. That may have been the last member of the Misfits, but we're not done. We have the second rival band that came later in the series, the Euro pop trash group, The Stingers. Hey folks, if you like this content, you're having fun with this 80s fashion thing, go ahead and give me a like and subscribe. Let's start right from the get-go with the Stingers' main man, Riot. Riot's real name was Rory Llewellyn. Try saying that 3 times fast. And he was an army brat, not by choice. Yeah, his dad and him, they had some conflict, and as soon as he could, he rebelled, became a rock star, and grew beautiful, blonde, luxurious locks. Did I mention again, this is a soap opera, but don't worry. Riot and his father, they came together, probably with Jem's help, and they mended their bond. So here we have, now this is what I mean by the epitome of theatrical stage style. Although there is 80s inspiration under it all, nobody was wearing yellow and black tailcoat, but you could find a 1980s tux tailcoat at any time in the time period, but you just had to customize it a little, make it yellow, add the designs, and you have the main look of Riot. Now, you gotta add to this, of course, it's not just about the jacket. You find one of those very common either leather or sequin pants. This is like probably some leather trousers here, tucked into, well, white leather boots with cuffs, with a little fringe. Now, what goes with pirate boots? This is the creme de la creme. It's that gorgeous shirt cut to his navel, and yes, you could absolutely find this at the time. Here's a picture of a vintage, ruffled pirate shirt. Absolutely the look for Riot. It works for this band. Oh, but it is not his only look. When they added the Stingers, they had a whole new opportunity to add some new characters who they could sell their doll, but then add all these fashion accessories. And the show did not miss a beat. Every episode, they were wearing something different. Military looks were really popular in the 80s, as you can see here. You can see that military style jacket. So taking that inspiration and putting it on Riot's long coat, they really did, it lended itself well to his look, along with a flashy yellow vest and some military pants complete with stripe and boots. We had a whole new look. But then there was this look. Don't even get me started, because yeah, this look is completely of the era. It takes its cues from a different kind of flashy new stretch pants, yellow and black, of course, a purple wrestling tank top, and mesh. Lots of mesh. And even that armband, yeah, this wasn't fantasy fashion, folks. This was reality. If you give me a minute, I'll show you what I mean. All of this was ready to make it to the toy shelves and to waiting consumers' hands.
And they're all taller than Barbie.
Alas, Mattel and Barbie, they squashed it. Before I move on to the other members of the Stingers, you have to realize that Barbie and the Rockers came in and decided, you know what? We are going to take the power. We're going to dethrone Jem, and they did. So, strangely enough, with all the money and the creativity put into this, the Stingers, Riot and his fellow band members, they never made it to the toy shows. Actually, they have prototypes made. So I am going to show you here what the box art would have looked like. We've got some, this is very much somebody else's homage to it, but here's Riot in a style of the box art of the original character. So it looks pretty good, very consistent with the other ones. And here's the prototype. Again, this is just, I think, a Polaroid picture from Hasbro that showed what they were going to put out. I got to be honest, it wasn't a great look, but it was a prototype. I don't think any girl would be swooning over this, but it is pretty sad to know they never made it out there, although there was a lot of attention paid to these new characters and their looks. But what's truly important here is that you see the real world, real life vintage fashions from the 1980s that did inspire these characters. Whether they were released or not, we got to see them depicted and showcased in the cartoon and see where these fashions came from. All right, it's time for the Rapture. No, not that Rapture. Rapture. Phoebe Ash, the vaguely European guitar player for the Stingers, and somebody who dabbled in the mystic arts, and not very good. She's actually just a con man, and she too has a very theatrical look. Although when you look at this dress, you can tell it takes inspiration from a few different designs of the time period. Now, it's not quite this jeans skirt, but it's got that cut. But you can imagine it here like this in the leather. Now, you got to imagine it yellow because, let's be honest, when you got a name like the Stingers, you know you're going to have to go all literal and be yellow and black. Now, we don't necessarily say the word bee, but we can see the inspiration of the bug behind the Stingers and their band. Now, the one thing I couldn't find is anything with this giant collar. This is huge, like she's a bat, and quite often she played this kind of evil character. Oh, and mesh, I think we've already talked about it. Mesh was a thing. I'm not talking about the fishnet pantyhose, because that was definitely a thing. Everyone knows that, but that arm extender there, that fishnet, it was like the mesh gloves people wore all the time, even Madonna. So you could simply find that in the 80s. Now, the rest of this look is just a lot of jewelry. She does have some unique hair, and I wouldn't be doing her any justice without showing you the homage to her original box art. Again, this is someone's take on that because they never really did get that box art out, but it looks really good. And then, of course, the prototype. So here's what Hasbro had in store for Rapture if she had hit the toy shelves. So let's move on to the third and final member of the Stingers. This is Ingrid Kruger. Yes, Ingrid Kruger. I'm not kidding about these names. They really dug deep to make these original. Actually, she goes by Minx, but when I think of Ingrid Kruger, I still think of that vaguely European, which she played in the show. She was very exotic, and what was very interesting is she was kind of low-key with the makeup and certainly with the hair. She broke away from the norm, and instead of having the big rocker hair, she was kind of leaning into the 90s with that straight blonde hair. Oh, by the way, if you didn't notice, being blonde seemed to be a prerequisite of being a Stinger. She also is the simplest of costumes and the most sexy and revealing. So being very risque wearing this bralette. But was this bralette 80s? Of course it was. There were so many young women stars wearing this. Now, it sometimes was layered with other things, but I couldn't find one with yellow applique stars on it, but I could find a black bralette and a yellow bralette. So, of course, as her top, it was a thing. Now, the bottom is easy. You get some nice, tight leather pants with a thick, wide black belt, and you stick them into some very high, very sexy, high-heeled boots, and you pretty much have Ingrid down to a T. So, Minx, I should say, tops this off, and I do mean top, with a hat that's very reminiscent of, I don't know, Princess Di. It does give that mysterious look and finishes off the look of the last member of the Stingers. So let's show you what that homage artwork looks like, reminiscent of the old box art for this character, and it looks pretty good. Like I said, stays consistent. She was the keyboard player of the Stingers, and she started a little love triangle herself with the character Rio. But more on that another time. We're looking at the prototype doll right here. I'm very happy that they used a different face sculpt, but once again, I felt like that they were targeting a younger audience with Jem and the Holograms, which wasn't good for their image because Barbie already had sort of like an adult look, and they came in and dethroned Jem. But what was great about Jem is after 3 years, her gimmick, her niche in the MTV generation, having those songs, having those music videos, and the tape sets that came with the dolls, the light up earrings, it was media that didn't exist in Barbie's world. So the legacy of Jem lives on even today. What did you think? And can you believe it? I mean, there is honestly reality in some of those crazy ass fashions they designed for their way out characters. Which of these did you like best? Oh, and which of them did you try to sport back in the day? This is PopCon, a salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s. And what's the 80s without the fashions? And also that hair as high as the heavens. Which one of these looks did you try to sport in your young Gen X days? Let me know in the comments and clickety-click the subscribe button. Until next time.